guys, I've got a very exciting guest for today's episode. Many of you probably know her from her posts online and just her genuine influence in the local SEO world. I'm talking about Joy Hawkins, who's joining us from Sterling Sky. I'm sure a lot of you have seen her content and maybe you've learned a lot from her in the past. And the purpose of this interview is really for us just to talk and see what her experience was like, growing her agency into the massive one that it is today. So without further ado, Joy, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I think like what I'm most interested in, and for those of you watching, I've never met Joy before, but I feel like I have just because I've seen so much of her content on LinkedIn and in different webinars. And I've always just been so curious because you took a much different route than most people take in growing your agency. So let's just take it all the way back to day one. Why did you decide to start a marketing agency?
Yeah, I'm curious on what I'm different about, but you can tell me later. I'd say it was an accidental kind of thing. Was not something I planned. Like if you'd asked me in my 20s if I planned on owning a company, it would have been like, heck no. Definitely never wanted to. But I worked at an agency that I had kind of strong disagreements with. I really wanted to focus on SEO. I got kind of obsessed with figuring out how Google's algorithm worked, and they really wanted me in sales. So there was a really big difference of what we wanted to do. They liked that I could sell a lot, and that was great and all, but unfortunately they were having me sell using expertise, and then they would hand over accounts to junior SEOs who had maybe 6 months experience. And these people are signing up expecting that, like, I don't know, not necessarily that I would be working on their accounts, but somebody of my like level of expertise might be working on my accounts. And it just bothered me. The way that they kind of went about it and expressed my opinions, and let's just say I don't think they cared. So it was one of those things where I knew I needed to get out, and I knew that like I felt too strongly about things to just kind of stay there. So I applied at a bunch of jobs, and the one that I was supposed to take completely fell through. And at that point I was like, okay, maybe I'll just try consulting on my own. So in 2017, I launched Sterling Sky thinking that I was going to maybe have like 2 or 3 employees. I knew I didn't want to be by myself, but I figured it would be very, very small. We just do consulting for some agencies and maybe some clients, and I just kind of pay myself and be happy with it. Fast forward, what are we at, year 9 now? I have 43 employees now, but I never planned that. It just kind of happened. And I'm very blessed. I'm not saying that to sound arrogant. I think it's a very kind of interesting journey that I would never would anticipated.
That's amazing. And I mean, I've got to ask, like, what do you think it was? Because that got you, to your size, because I feel like a lot of agencies kind of get stuck in that 1 to 10 client range. I think 12 is actually like, from what I can tell, that's if you get past 12, you're gonna be fine. Like, what do you think it was that got you past like this is gonna be my, kind of like bridge in my career or like hobby business to like, holy crap, we're now sponsoring major events. You have booths everywhere, you speak everywhere. You're like, what was that like catalyst moment?
Yeah, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was like a quick thing, right? So when I worked at the other agency, I worked there for 8 years. And then before that, I worked in a different agency for 3 years. I had 11 years experience before I started my agency. I've got people messaging me all the time on social media, and they'll be like, okay, I want to go start an agency. And I'm like, okay, how much experience do you have? And they're like, none. I'm like, that's the worst idea ever. I was like, go build up your expertise. And then like, once you actually know what you're talking about and you have some type of authority in the industry, maybe then considering starting your own thing if you want. So by the time I started Sterling Sky, I already had a social media following. I already had like, over 10,000 followers on not LinkedIn, sorry, it was Twitter, I think was my highest following at the time. And I had a newsletter, I had a blog. I like turned my blog into my business website. So it was very smooth and easy transition starting out. And all I did was like put it out there like, hey, I started my own agency. The company that I left was one of my first clients. Like they hired me to do consulting. They're like, oh, we still want you. So we're going to hire you to help with our team and like training and stuff. I was like, perfect. And then so I had a bunch of agencies hire me originally that I knew from events I'd spoken at. I was already speaking, I was already writing, I was already doing all those things. And it didn't happen fast. It took 11 years. So I'm not one for quick wins in the sense of like anything worth building. It takes a while. It takes a lot of hard work.
Okay, very cool. So you were actually building up your own like brand while you were still employed by somebody else. And you really capitalized on that when you went off
Yeah.
on your own.
With no intention of ever starting my own company. I just really cared about the industry and I really cared about, having a voice in it. And I loved learning. So I was always like commenting on forums. Like forums were big for me. That's kind of where I got started. So commenting on blogs back when that was a thing. And forums, and I got involved in Google's online forum around 2012 was when I got into that program. So I'm part of a volunteer program at Google, and we basically moderate their forums for them. So I knew a bunch of people from that, and then I started speaking. I got my first speaking gig, I don't know, maybe 2010, something like that. And I started writing for Search Engine Land as well. So I was really like already putting myself out there quite a bit.
Right. That's amazing. I've heard that advice many times from people, which is like, even while you're working for someone, start becoming like a thought leader in that industry. And I can't say I know anybody else that it's actually worked for aside from you. So congrats on, I guess, breaking through that noise.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I think that you're so unique in the way that you're growing your agency is that you are just so heavily invested in content and trying things and sharing your knowledge freely online, right? Some people might try to like hoard their findings so they can give their clients the edge, but you really take this is what I'm seeing today. Like this just hit Google. This is how quote unquote beat it. And I just think that's really interesting. And yeah, so like, I guess you were already building yourself as a thought leader, but how do you view acquisition today when it comes to clients? Is it more and more content? Have you built up a sales team?
We don't have a sales team at all. I shouldn't say that. Like we have people that are like doing sales, but they're not dedicated salespeople. So they are SEOs. I was really big on not having a sales team because that was one of the problems at the agency that I worked at is there was a huge divide between the sales team and the actual like SEO team. And the sales team would promise the world, do anything to get the client in, and then the SEO team would be like, dude, like you promised this, this, and this, we can't do this. So I really didn't want people selling, stuff that we couldn't deliver. So our quote unquote sales team are SEOs, account managers. One of my VPs is like head of sales, but he's like one of the smartest people at SEO that works at my agency. So he really knows his stuff, and like how we sell is like through knowledge, right? So we'll get people on the phone, we'll explain problems to them, talk about solutions. We kind of sell through knowledge, which is always how I would sell at the previous agency as well. So why people would want to sign up because they're like, oh, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
And I love that because I mean, there's two different ways I think that agencies go. They go the say anything they need to close the deal route, or they really set expectations very well so that they can set their client up for success and keep them for a much longer time. Obviously, you fall in the educational route and setting them up for success. How do you handle when someone says I want leads starting tomorrow and you have to explain how SEO takes a little bit of time? Like, why do you think you stand out there?
yeah, so as we've evolved, I think that one of the things I've really become clear is there's certain types of clients that are not an ideal client. Doesn't mean that we would turn them away necessarily, but I'm getting more hesitant to take them on and being a lot more upfront. So we had like an appliance repair business, for example, that was just talking to one of my colleagues, and they're like, okay, he says he needs to get 46 more leads a month to break even. I'm like, that's a lot. Like to get 46 leads a month, like just through SEO with maybe, let's say, a single location, that's a pretty high number. Whereas, if we have like, for example, a lawyer client, one case could pay for our entire SEO bill for the year and make them tons of money too, right? So it's like certain industries I think are a lot better than others because it's a lot less pressure and stress. Like I think if I was to like take on a hair salon, for example, they'd be in that boat where they need like 50 to 60 new customers to pay for the bill. And I'm like, that's not likely workable. So we have kind of refined what industries we work in. And I would also say we're trying really hard to like tell people if they're in that position to like do ads, like don't do SEO, run ads, you'll get leads faster and quicker. And the ideal customer is not one that would be dead without you, because those are like actually some of the worst customers, right? If like all their business is coming from their Google business profile, for example, like what happens when that thing gets suspended? Like, I can't feed my family. Like that is not a position you should be in as a business owner. Like you need multiple lead sources. So, yeah.
So here's another thing. I mean, I guess you're at an advantage because you are, I mean, I'm not sure who else would be a bigger expert in Google business profiles than you. We do absolutely everything we can possibly do to not get a Google business profile suspended.
Yeah.
But every now and then it's inevitable that somebody changes their address not knowing that that's going to get them suspended, or they do something that gets them, or just the Google algorithm catches them for something else. What do you fall back on when that happens to be like, we did not do this, this is how it did it, and kind of calm them down? Because to your point, if that's the only thing that's feeding their family, obviously, it's a very high emotional issue.
Yeah, well, again, like, for example, we don't work with locksmiths. I'll tell you that industry gets suspensions constantly. So we don't work with them. Just too many factors about that industry were problematic for me. So we don't work with that industry, but our garage door repair clients, for example, we have a couple big, large garage door repair clients who have a lot of locations, and they're very aware. We tell them flat out when we start with them, like, listen, if you've got 60 business locations, you're going to have suspensions happen. And so they're well aware that that is a possibility. And we kind of have that conversation up front. And it can be like nothing. I don't think we've ever really triggered a suspension by things that we've done per se, but I've had clients accidentally delete their listings and they have no idea how they did it, but the listing just like vanishes. And we're trying to backtrack and figure out where it went. And it's like, oh, I migrated my email or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely had some of those horror stories, and you're never going to be able to avoid clients blaming you for stuff, right? But I think we try as much as we can to bring some of that stuff up at the very
Yeah.
beginning.
And as far as setting expectations, like, where are you at today? I mean, you've been doing this for a while. What are you saying when someone starts a local marketing service with you?
Yeah, so I mean, I try really hard to tell people that rankings don't matter. That being said, like most of our clients don't listen. So you can say it all day long, and I know it's true because it's like ranking grids are subjective to a lot of things. And I think we're moving towards a world where ranking grids are going to be obsolete because how do you track ranking in AI if they flip the switch on that? Like I think ranking grids are kind of toast. So we've been trying to train our clients, but they really like rankings, like all of them, most of them, I should say. So our reporting is strictly focused on leads. Now, I will say with some of the changes that Google has been doing in the last 2 years, even lead numbers can be deceiving. So we're even seeing lots of cases now where lead numbers actually look bad, but their business is either up or the same. So we try now as much as we can to focus all of our calls with clients on how much are you making? How's your business? How much did you actually close? Asking those targeted
Mm-hmm.
questions and trying to dig into as well what services specifically make the money. That always really impresses people because a lot of agencies don't do that. So I
Mm-hmm.
think asking them those questions on those monthly calls, like how is business? Okay, what are you focusing on maybe that you weren't focusing on before that we can help elevate? Because you can sometimes make a page improve and get way more leads. And then I've had this conversation many times where you go to a client, and you're like, ooh, and they're like, actually, those leads are trash. So I can't tell you how often that happens. So really, it's all about revenue. So that is what we try to get to.
Yeah. And so when you're talking about the lead data, are you referring mostly like the Google Maps and search views and call clicks, website directions, like those metrics, or are you actually putting some kind of tracking on their websites?
So we usually use call tracking for everything. Huge call tracking fan. I tell all our clients, you don't have to do call tracking, but if you don't, you are crippling us basically and your own investment, especially if you're running ads, because we push ads like crazy, especially lately with our clients. We're like, you want to run ads. Usually they will get you a really good ROI. There's so many different formats Google has lately. They're giving it such a huge space in the search results now. So if you're running ads and you're not doing call tracking, you have no idea what keywords are converting. You don't know where to put more money. So you're probably wasting a good amount. So
Mm-hmm.
call tracking is key. We use Leadferno mostly for texting leads so that we can track those. And then obviously form fills or booking, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So your
And so
typical
you
things.
think, so I'm guessing you don't think the difference of having a one number on your Google profile versus Yellow Pages or your website matters too much. It's better just have the call tracking data.
Yeah, we use, well, the quick fix for that is just use the secondary phone number field for your real number. And then Google won't have any issues lining it up with directories or whatever. But they honestly, NAP consistency is such a thing that Google doesn't necessarily care about anymore. The only thing I've seen where some type of consistency matters is your name, your business name. You definitely want
Mm-hmm.
that consistent so that people see the things you want them to see when they do a brand search. But as far as phone number consistency, I haven't found that to be a ranking thing
Yeah.
for a very long time.
When I started the business about 6 years ago, it was primarily citations and reviews. And then, I don't know, 2022, 2023 came around and I just lost conviction in NAP consistency, really moving the needle at all. And that's what got me into the whole Google Business Profile, or GMB at the time, rabbit hole of like, oh, this is like where the future is. And I was hoping the citations would just like go away. And then I think they were kind of, and we still provided them just because agencies expected them because their clients expected them. And then AI just brought it right on back. And so here we are. I totally agree with you.
AI is different though. Like AI brought back like certain types, but like not the same types of sites. Like I think the niche sites are really killer for AI and like award sites. But I don't see like yellowpages.com getting cited all the time in AI, or Merchant Circle, or some of these like old school
Yeah.
citations that we used to care about. Those ones are still pretty dead. But the ones that I am definitely seeing is the awards in the, for lawyers, for example, there's a few like super lawyers and like some of those ones that I see cited a lot.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I'm seeing that also. I think to your point earlier about heat maps going away, I do think that like that is a very likely possibility, and that it's going to be a huge challenge for the marketing world to kind of tell all your clients, sorry, we don't do those, and tell your new clients that are expecting them, like, no, sorry, we don't do those. Um, so I would imagine that they'll become somewhat relevant. They'll remain somewhat relevant, but like we'll need to get much better at figuring out who's clicking to the website and calling you, and did that person convert. And I think huge opportunity to whatever tech provider figures out a way to track a Google profile visit to a sale for a roofer or plumber or whatever it might be. But yeah, interesting that you like the call tracking number so much
Well,
and think it's worth
yeah,
doing. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's the solution to your problem. So much of it is either a call or a form fill, and both of those are super trackable. You can see what page they came from, what source it came from. You can potentially, depending on your CRM, connect behind the scenes and then even see if that thing turned into a sale. So that's really the level that we want, right? Rankings have just always been like a way to measure Google's algorithm. And that's getting more challenging because now we're going to have to look at things like traffic even more. Because I certainly still look at rankings when I'm evaluating strategies to see what moved what. But it's going to be an adjustment, but I'm ready for it.
I have a curiosity question for you. I've never been a fan of looking at what competitors are doing that are ranking in the top three and being like, oh, they have that category and that number of reviews and what are your thoughts? Do you think that it's worth doing competitor analysis to compare who's at the top three today and why you're not there, or do you think it's so dynamic?
We use competitor analysis to prove a point, not to come up with new tactics. There's very few times where I've actually looked at competitors for tactics. So now that we're in the world of AI, I've definitely been looking at some competitors that are, like, I specifically am looking for the ones that are doing better in AI, but not traditional search. I'm like, what are they doing that these
Mhm.
guys aren't doing? So I've definitely done more competitor analysis in the last year than I have in previous years for that reason, just to come up with new tactics. But if we get like a law firm as a client, I'm not going to go look at what their competitors are writing about or doing. That's like the wrong way to approach SEO. I'm going to go based off of what we've done for other law firms that has worked really well, produced really good results. I'm going to follow that playbook. It is a much better way to go about things. Go with, follow the data. And the data for that particular business site is the best place to start.
I'm so relieved to hear you say that because I totally agree. Like, you're never going to be as good as what someone else is good at. So, like, you're kind of just optimizing for second, even if it was to work in that fashion.
Yeah, I do
So,
look at pages sometimes that are outranking us to figure, especially with algorithm updates, if one goes up and I go down, I'm like, okay, what is the one that goes, like I will look at their pages to try and
mhm.
isolate patterns. The one time where you really actually do want to measure competitors is when it comes to review volume. So we actually had a tool built internally that will take all the top ranking businesses in your market. It'll tell you how many reviews they are getting per week and then how many you're getting per week or per month. And
Nice.
that number matters a lot because how well you do has everything to do with how you're pacing against your competitors.
Nice. Yeah. Uh, yeah, we go about that in a slightly different way. I want to switch gears to like how you suggest agencies handle their account management, because you mentioned earlier shifting the conversation to like how's your business doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that, like getting their, I guess, their emotional side of the equation and less on the data, because you can't really see all their conversions that you're providing. What does your account management structure look like? How often are you reaching out to them? What style meetings? What can you share there?
Yeah, so we make our account managers also the strategists. That we used to split these roles. The strategist being like the person that plans all the work for the account. So we are big on custom work. We don't have like, oh, you're getting 3 blog posts a month and this many things and this many links. I just genuinely believe that doesn't work at all. So we're very custom. And as far as which things to pull in, like if you've got 70 different things we could do, like which ones we do for who and when, that's decided by the strategist, but the account manager is the one that talks to the client. So we actually merged those roles a few years ago because we had them separated. They don't generally work being separated. So we have one person that usually each person manages around 12 accounts or so. Again, that number varies a lot based on how big the client is. You know, if we have somebody with like $20,000 a month client, well, that's not the same as a $3,000 a month client, right? So it's either or. But I'd say on average, maybe 12 accounts per account manager. And then we have, you know, a multitude of people working on that account depending on their specialty. If they need links, it's link builder. If they need GBP stuff, it's a GBP person. If it's on-site, we have an on-site person, et cetera. But the account manager kind of determines who's working on account, what they're doing. And as far as calls with the client or communication, we tried it for monthly calls. I actually had to talk to a client the other day and they were asking for weekly calls. And I was like, what do you like value more? I was like, do you value us consulting with you or do you value us implementing? She's like, 100% I want you implementing. I'm like, okay, we should not be doing weekly calls. I was like, this is a terrible idea if you want us to spend more time implementing because it all comes out of your budget. Like, she's like, oh, I didn't know that. And I was like, we've told her that before. But like, yeah, I was just like, okay, we're gonna cut your weekly calls back. But I told the guy, I was like, listen, she likes to know what's going on. Just email her once a week, shoot her a quick update when you're working on her, just to satisfy her. And that seems to, so far, I've been working. So I'm big on like frequent updates throughout the month so that you don't want them to be emailing you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
they really don't need more than one call a month. Like for most of our accounts, that would be excessive.
Yeah, no, and I love the way you put that. Like you have a set budget. We can either, hop on the call or we can do more stuff to help you. In the past when we had a managed service, because we did that before we built our page platform, we would whenever we would get a client that wanted a weekly call, like we just weren't set up to do that well at all. And it was more of a conversation. Like as much as we'd love to help you, we're not the right agency. Maybe we can introduce you to someone that can, because like also I feel like someone that's expecting weekly updates is not going to be super happy because like things don't move that quickly. Like there's not going
No.
to be a huge shift every week and it's just going to frustrate them.
Yeah, no, it's true. There's certain red flags sometimes that comes out in like the original sales call where we're like, "Meh," and we send a lot of people away. But again, like I'm in a position to do that because all of our leads are inbound, so we don't do any type of outbound reach, and our leads come from YouTube, LinkedIn, conferences I speak at, podcasts, etc. But we don't do any type of cold outreach, so it's a little easier when you're in that scenario.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely amazing. What have you put anything in motion around like referrals and finding the right time to ask people for referrals, or when you do know at Outbound, like that includes even asking for referrals?
We do ask for referrals. We could get better at that, to be honest. It's something actually I was discussing with my management team the other day. I was like, we should probably get more referrals. We probably don't ask for them enough because, sometimes it feels kind of scummy to ask for them. Like, I don't know. I don't love doing that, but it's definitely smart and we get a lot of them. So we compensate our clients with like a gift card. If they refer somebody that signs up, we send them a gift card, like an Amazon gift card. So I don't have any crazy like commission referral things or anything like that. I've definitely had a couple clients ask me, they're like, oh, I know a lot of people, if you put me on this commission thing, I'll like sell you. And I'm like, I don't have that baked into our pricing for anybody. So, and I'm not even sure we can handle the volume if you wanted to start blasting us out there. So I don't know. I've never taken anybody up on that.
Uh-huh. Okay. And then do you guys have a process built in for when you ask clients to leave you a review on Google or wherever?
Yeah, we asked that. Actually, a great one is when you get them reinstated. we have a suspension service that people pay us to get their listings reinstated, and that's one of the best times to ask people because they're so grateful. But usually it's when they're happy, right? So we wait until they're happy, till we're making the money, and then like, hey, by the way, do you mind leaving us a review? And I try to do it more at conferences too, as well, when I'm speaking and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
hey, if you liked this session or you learned something from me, leave us a review, because that's a business interaction as well.
Nice. And so now your role, you're overseeing a very large, successful agency. Something that I try to do more is create content and have conversations with other thought leaders. Is it your full-time job creating content? Like there's always something
No.
online. What
Oh my
percentage of your
goodness.
day do you allocate to it?
Oh my goodness, not much. Our team is pretty huge that does works on that, right? Like I have 3 video editors. We have, I don't even write the scripts for our videos or anything like that. I was at one point, and I'm like, this is too much work. I'm the person that basically heads up strategy. So I'm the one that's doing a lot of testing, coming up with new tactics, and then, assigning stuff out to people saying, okay, I want you to do this. And then I come back and I measure and see if it worked. I like measuring. That's like my favorite thing to do. So I stare at search results and trends and things, and then that makes it easier for me to come up with concepts to go over on team meetings. I think we go over in team meetings, we kind of we tag things. Do we want to publish this? Do we not want to publish this? Can we publish this? Like some of the stuff we can't publish. And we certainly don't publish. I think I probably published maybe 20% of what we have. I wouldn't have the capacity to publish it all. So there are things, like to your earlier point, that we don't share intentionally. Like you can't share everything. There are some times where I'm like, that's too good. We can't share that. There's been a few of those. But like also I got started in my career by sharing like almost everything. At that point, I was like, anytime I was learning or testing stuff and I saw something cool, I would share it and just give away all my secrets. And that sounds weird to some people, but I'm like, no, that's how you build expertise. That's how you build trust. Like people think you know what you're talking about. They want to talk to you because you've proven yourself. If you hoard all that information, nobody would know if they could trust you.
Yeah, no, I love it. I personally appreciate everything you're doing for the community. I guess you've been so kind to share the last 26 minutes with me. I have one last question for you. Like, if you were starting off your agency again and you only had $1,000 in your pocket, how are you going to go out and get your first client?
Man. Okay. Well, again, I wouldn't start an agency until you have a following. So I have no idea. Is like if you had no following and nobody knew you, I don't know how you get your first client, to be honest. How I did it back in the day was cold calling. So like, I don't know. That was before I had anything. I used to get all my clients by cold calling, which was like nobody wants to do that job. I would never want to go back to do that job, but I was successful at it. So if you can be successful at door to door or cold calling, you can do anything. So I mean, honestly, you need to get in front of business owners. If you have zero network, find some friends who are business owners that will let you do it for free. Prove yourself on their sites, then like maybe at some point start charging them. Again, I would not ever quit your day job until you have like, I don't know, a thing waiting for you. Like I'm not a big fan of like high risk, so I would never quit my day job and go try something that I could be making $0 at. That sounds terrifying.
You're
Yeah, I mean, I used to cold call like 300 businesses a day. So I was like, if you've ever seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, and Will Smith is like talking about how he realized if he didn't put the phone down every time that he could make like 4 or 5 more calls a day. That was me. I was like, my boss would run competitions and top sales of the day or top phone time or number of calls between me and my sister. One of us would win one and one of us would win the other every single day, and everyone hated us because we were like really competitive. But I was like, I'm just going to dial and keep dialing. And I'll never forget, like I got some sales sometimes like 5 minutes before I was supposed to leave for the day. And I was like, if I hadn't made that one last call, I wouldn't have gotten that sale. So
yeah.
I definitely think there's got to be a hustle mentality for sure. But like nobody wants to do that forever. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you hear it here first, and for the 100th time, you got to pick up the phone call.
or meet people in person too, right? Like that goes a long way.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, I just want to thank you so much. You can find Joy everywhere, but if someone had to pick one place to follow you, where do you want that?
I mean, our website is sterlingsky.ca, and I would subscribe to our newsletter on there. It should be like one of the biggest things on the site. Subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll get everything, all the updates, every article that we publish, videos, etc.
Awesome. And we'll put a link to that in the video description. Again, Joy, thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks.